Hello and welcome to Wingfan, your data-driven sidekick for all things sports. This weekend, all eyes are on UFC 292, where we will see a clash between bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling and the electric striker Sean O'Malley. Today, I'm going to be diving into 5 things that I'll be watching for in this fight. Before we get into it, let me just say that I have a horrible graphics card on my computer apparently, and I just couldn't get animations or a webcam video in here. However, those things will be coming in the future videos, so bear with me. Without further ado, let's get to item number 1. The first thing I'm going to be looking at is who's going to win the battle for the pace of this fight. Both Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley throw strikes at high volumes, but who's going to actually dictate the pace of this matchup? Aljamain Sterling throws 45 strikes per 5 minutes compared to just 29 from his opponents. That's a difference of about 17 strikes every single round. Sean O'Malley overwhelms his opponents with 61 strikes per 5 minutes with a differential of 15.6. I'm thinking it's going to be easier for Aljamain Sterling to keep his average pace because Sean O'Malley's opponents average 45.8 strikes per 5 minutes, which is pretty much in line with Aljamain Sterling's average. The real question I have is whether or not Sean can double Aljamain Sterling's opponent pace, given that Sterling has been very good at suppressing the incoming strikes from his opponents. Opponents on average attempt 39% fewer strikes per 5 minutes, and only Pedro Munez back in 2019 attempted more than 35 strikes per 5 minutes. Sean's best path to victory in this fight will be catching Aljamain Sterling with one of his power strikes, and the more volume he can get off, the more likely something like that's going to land. All right. The second thing I'm looking at for this fight is whether or not Sean O'Malley is going to be able to keep it at a distance, on the feet and at a distance, or if Aljamain Sterling can close the distance and neutralize those striking weapons. It's no secret that Sean O'Malley is where he wants this fight to take place. Since joining the UFC, 96% of Sean's strikes have been at distance, and 94% of those strikes have targeted the head or the body. He's a masterful striker, and he's best when he has the space to do it. Aljamain Sterling is much more comfortable in the clinch, and his ground control is going to be better than anything Sean O'Malley's seen to date. If you watch O'Malley's fight against Peter Yan, it was way too easy for Yan to get Sean to the ground. O'Malley will say that this was because he did not expect Yan to wrestle, but I still think that's a hole in Sean's game that Aljamain Sterling is going to be able to exploit. And I don't think it's going to be as easy to get up against Aljamain Sterling as it was against Peter Yan. Unless O'Malley catches Aljamain Sterling early, he is going to be taken down, and the biggest question is whether or not he's going to be able to get up and back at distance. All right, Item number 3 I'm looking at is the endurance factor of Sean O'Malley specifically. We have not seen Sean O'Malley in a 5-round fight. In fact, I don't even think he's prepared for a 5-round fight in his career. So I'm a little bit curious whether or not, if this thing makes it past the 3rd round, if he's going to be able to hold up in a high-volume affair. But if you look at his pace and accuracy stats by round, there's some pretty encouraging evidence that Sean O'Malley has enough gas in the tank to compete into those championship rounds. Sean's average pace of 70 and accuracy of 63% are both higher than his averages in round 1 and 2. So he throws more volume and with more accuracy later in the fights. Aljamain has 5-round championship experience and has shown the durability to win these championship fight decisions. One thing that does stand out, though, is his pace drops in round 5 in favor of more takedown attempts. Is this the weight cut getting to him late in a fight? Or does he think controlling that last round in a close fight will tip the scales in his favor? Either way, if we head into the last round of a close fight, look for Sterling to over-prioritize the takedown and try to avoid unnecessary risk of standing with Sean O'Malley late in the fight. All right, the fourth and maybe the most important thing in this fight is going to be Aljamain Sterling's chin. With O'Malley's power, can Sterling's chin withstand an onslaught? You can argue the difficulty of his matchups all you want, but Sean O'Malley's has power. As long as he's on his feet at distance, he is one strike away from ending the fight in the blink of an eye. He has 5 knockdowns and 5 KO TKOs in his 9 UFC fights. Sterling has been knocked down 4 times in his career, but only once as of late, and his only KO TKO loss was a brutal knee that would have crumbled even the most solid UFC chins. Aljamain Sterling, on the other hand, has 0 knockdowns for himself, and his only KO TKO win was the way of ground and pound against TJ Dillashaw, and it wasn't really an indication of serious striking power. Whether or not Sterling can take Sean O'Malley's best stuff, in my opinion, is unknown. Someone like a Charles Oliveira can get knocked down and survive because nobody's willing to take a risk of a ground exchange with him, but Sean has some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I'm not sure that Aljamain has the same defensive submissions as Charles. The final point that I have, and one that I don't have any data for, is who will the larger UFC cage benefit? I don't have any data for this because it's not really something it's easy to collect data for. But the bigger cage should allow Sean O'Malley more room for his creative footwork and to get those strikes off. But on the other hand, if he gets taken down in the middle of the octagon, he's not going to have the cage to help him avoid submissions and get back to his feet. So I think much like we saw with Alexander Volkanovski against Brian Ortega and Islam, if Sean O'Malley's going to prove to us that he is a championship caliber fighter and he can be a champion, a real champion, I think he's going to have to prove that he can go into deep waters in the grappling and on the ground and come out the other side. So I'll be very interested to see how that plays out as well. There you have it. 5 things I'm looking for this weekend's main event. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments section who you have this week in this weekend's fights. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.